Okay.
So
So I was very surprised when you showed up at the show here because I hadn't seen. Couldn't think when's the last time I had watched AV Week. I usually listen to it in the car, and the amount of hair you have was reduced by 87% from
that's
what
fair.
I was expecting.
yeah, that's fair.
You're listening to the AV IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
This is the AV IT Amplifier. Thank you for tuning in. We have a very special guest back for week 2. Mr. Tim Albright. Tim, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So, first off,
Yes.
let's just start with the beginning.
Okay.
This is AV Week.
This is AV Week.
Where did that come from?
Okay. I've never been asked that question. So AV Week is my version of This Week in Tech.
Yeah.
Which is an old podcast from Leo Laporte and somebody I listened to for years and have a lot of respect for. And honestly, dude, I was sitting in the college I worked for. I taught audio production at our radio station in our radio program. And we were connected via Skype, actually. And it was an old friend of mine. I forced him to come with me, so he physically was in person. He was a rep for Sennheiser at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then George Tucker, who became another dear friend, and then Linda said Frembus. And I had this idea, and I'm like, this is going to do this and this thing. And I'm sitting there, and I pressed record, and I froze.
Yeah.
And you ever have one of those moments, and I'm romanticizing a bit, but it was one of those moments with looking back, it felt like if I took a step, things would be put into motion and would change in my life I could not anticipate.
Interesting.
And I was like, okay. So This Week in Tech was in my head. I'm like, there's this void I don't know if I want to step into. And that just came out.
Yeah. And it's been that ever since.
It's been that ever since.
That's awesome. No, it's a brand, right?
Yeah.
It exists, and you get it twice per episode, which is the best part. Because you get it on the intro,
Yes.
and then you get it at the beginning of the interview. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't steal it.
You can steal it.
No, it's all right. You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
An introvert.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you know? Why?
Because I've been one my entire life, Ryan.
Interesting.
So, and people give, either they give introverts a bad rap or they misunderstand, right? For me, I am naturally an introvert because I do not get energy from hanging out with people.
Right.
I get energy from spending time by myself, from reading, from,
Yep.
in introverting, right?
Yeah.
Being introspective. I can go out and meet people. I can go out and be personable and, and I enjoy it on a certain level. I'm not like, hermit introvert, right? There's a spectrum there.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to, the binary for me is, do you get energy by going to parties and hanging out with people?
Right.
And my answer is no. It's exhausting.
Right.
Right? My family knows that after Infocom or ISE, you don't talk to Dad for a day or two, right? Because I'm recharging.
Yeah.
Because my batteries are spent.
Yeah. And so so obviously a lot of your work, I mean, we're at a show now, and like you said, those
I'm
two.
spent.
Right. But is it something you have to plan and think about?
Absolutely.
Like, here's my schedule, and if I book myself end to end, this isn't going to work.
And I typically do, because I'm an idiot.
Right. Well, and you got to make, you got to get
do.
while the getting's good.
Yeah.
But that's something, because you work in a way that, involves a lot of interaction with other people.
It does, and quite frankly, 90% of my interaction nobody sees.
Right.
Right. In talking with just people in the industry generically, I'll use that term. I talk to people every day of the week.
Yeah.
Right. And outside of trade shows, this is Monday through Friday. I have some sort of call or some sort of meeting, or I'm texting with this person or whatever, there is interaction on a daily basis. It is how I do my job. And that sounds, I didn't mean that to sound as flippant as it is, but, when I, I'm supporting somebody, I'm looking for a job. So, well, guess what?
Yeah.
3 days ago, somebody told me that they're looking to hire. Well, guess what? You two need to meet, and I need to get out of the way.
Right.
Right? But I do that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right? And I have had to put myself to a point where when I stop working for the day, I stop working.
Yeah.
I went through a pretty hellacious, mental health issue for a couple of years, and it was because I didn't have boundaries, and it was because I didn't recognize certain things, and it was because I was trying to fix all the world's problems, just not my own. And I've had to get myself to a point where there's a boundary here. You got to have boundaries, and that for me is when it's quitting time. It's quitting time.
So that's good advice. I like that. I struggle with boundaries.
No, they suck, dude.
I know.
Because personally, I'm not pushing this on you. I don't want to be a disappointment to people, right?
Yeah,
I want people to have a value in talk in connecting with me. And there are very few people, like one hand, very few people in my life, and extend that to the industry, that I will reply to after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whenever I say the day is done, right?
Yeah.
Especially if I'm hanging out with my family, I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm doing something to re-energize myself, to recharge the battery. There are a handful of people that absolutely, right? If they're calling or they're texting, 100%, right? But if it's just, some random person that I met 3 months ago and they're like, hey, what do you think about this? I'll reply to them, but it'll be tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I love that. That's, knowing yourself enough to know how to care for yourself.
And that's a lot of work.
It's so much work. And the older you get, the more required. It's an absolute necessity, and it's a total pain in the butt.
It is.
I know. Getting old is the worst.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Okay. So whether or not you will take on the mantra of Mr. AV industry, you know what I'm saying, I'm willing to give it.
All right.
What would the alternate part of the multiverse in which you end up completely outside the AV industry, what would that be? What would you be doing?
I'll give you 3.
All right.
Because it's the multiverse, right?
Yeah.
One is a politician of some sort. And for no other reason is because it also involves connecting people and, stuff like that. Another one is I would have stayed in media. I when I left, I was in radio for a number of years. And the reason I left was my wife and I started having a family, and it just wasn't conducive to starting a family.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, radio pays for squat.
Yeah.
So there was that aspect to it, right? And I it's kind of why, quite frankly, it's how I ended up doing AV Week and podcast, is because I enjoy the content creation side. And I enjoy the analytical side of what I do with, part of my brain has to analyze, to ask the questions and stuff like that. But we were able to, I was involved in some really, really killer things over the years that are they're experiences you can never buy.
Right.
Right? And really quickly, and I don't say this to brag on myself, just to give you an example here. For a very short amount of time, I was a movie reviewer for our radio station.
Yeah.
As such, I got sent on junkets.
As such,
I've interviewed some really, really killer people. And, the best one I have is I got to interview Pierce Brosnan for the last 007 movie that he did called Die Another Day. The reason that's important to me personally is I grew up watching Remington Steele with my mom.
Right.
Right? My dad worked second shift almost my entire life. And so my sister and I would sit down and watch Remington Steele with my mother.
Right.
Pierce Brosnan is Remington Steele. Right? So there was that, things that you could never buy.
Right.
Right. So I would probably just, ended up staying in media in some sort.
In some way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned starting out in radio.
Yeah.
Can I assume that there is some program that when, a new human is born with an amazing booming voice, they're immediately shunted towards the radio industry? Or
So I was a producer for a long time. Like, I wasn't on the air. I went to school for radio, right? Lewis and Clark Community College, which is where I actually got my AV start going back there.
Right.
And I ended up at KMOX, which is a news talk and the home of the Cardinals.
Cardinals,
right?
Yeah. My dad's a huge Cardinals fan.
Okay,
You have no idea. We could do that whole.
So don't tell him that I've not only hung out with Jack Buck, but there's that.
Yeah.
And I think that Joe Buck is still one of the best broadcasters, and you can at me all you want. There's a personal thing with that, right? Joe's from St. Louis. He still lives in St. Louis.
Yep.
Worked with him. Worked with his dad. Never worked with Joe, but I've met him, a dozen times or so. But it wasn't until I went to, at the time it was called AAA radio station. We played like Dave Matthews and Counting Crows and stuff like that in the early 2000s. And I did that because of 9/11.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It's weird, right? So I'm a 25-year-old kid, and 9/11 happens, and I'm sitting in the producer's station at KMOX, and I'm looking around, going, "What the freak am I doing here?"
Right.
Like, I want to go have fun. The world's going to end, and I'm going to be stuck in a news talk station.
Yeah.
So went to work for a music station, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up eventually on the air with them.
Cool. So how would you introduce your favorite Dave Matthews song?
That's a good question, because there's a handful of them. Because to me, so my favorite Dave Matthews song has a little bit of a sad story to it, so I warned you ahead of time. Wow. Give me a second.
You're good.
I told you it was a sad story. So my sister passed away 2012 of colon cancer. And my favorite Dave Matthews song is her favorite Dave Matthews song, called Butterfly. And prior to that, it probably would have been Crash Into Me. But Butterfly is one of those weird, like, he never recorded it for a long time. It was in a weird movie called Because of Winn-Dixie.
Huh.
And Matthews plays a character in that movie. Winn-Dixie's a dog, right? But he plays a character who just so happens to sing, right? And just so happens to have a guitar.
Right.
And he plays this silly little 60-second, 90-second song called Butterfly. And it is just, I mean, it's Dave Matthews. Have you ever heard Dave Matthews acoustic, like just him and a guitar? It's that.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that would be my song. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it connections with people in music has come up on this show a ton, right? And
there's a reason for that.
Yeah. So what does it? And obviously, I mean, like you said, just thinking of the sound of a song connects to emotion and all of those sorts of things. How do, like, I would just throw that to you, like, to you, is music something that that you use to keep track of who you are and what's valuable by songs that you connect to?
There's an old Billy Joel song called My Life. And if you were old enough, it was the theme song to a sitcom, a Tom Hanks sitcom called Bosom Buddies.
Yeah.
Never get made today. Don't ask.
Right.
Just go Google it and you can yell at me later. I hear that song and I see that episode, right?
Yeah.
Or that show. I hear it's the end of the world as we know it. And I am transported back to something in Illinois we call Theater Fest, which is where every year a bunch of high school theater geeks go, and we either go to U of I or ISU. The first time I heard that song was at a party at that event, right? We mentioned Dave Matthews a minute ago. Alanis Morissette, there's a funny story there about her, because we went to a concert. This radio station I worked for was sponsoring it. I turn off my phone when I go to concerts, still do. Yeah. This is 20 years ago now, though.
Right.
25 years ago, actually. And after the concert, I turn my phone back on, and I've got like 15 texts from my boss at the time, who was the program director. Come to find out, it was in between sets. It was after the opening act and before Alanis went on, and he's trying to get a hold of me because he's trying to introduce me to Alanis Morissette.
Oh my gosh!
And so I have a nice little poster that says, "Dear Tim, it's Alanis. Next time, answer your phone."
That's awesome.
So every time I hear Alanis, I am transported back to the Fox Theater in St. Louis, right? It really is. Music is a thread in most people's lives, and just like internal dialogues. I understand that people don't have internal dialogues. I don't understand those people, and I don't know that I trust them.
Yeah.
Same thing with music, right? Music and sense and food. These are all senses that. The older that I get, I realize how immeasurably important they are.
Yeah.
And they can, not just transport us back, but help us tell our own story going in the future.
So one of my questions on here is, of your 5 senses, which do you trust the most? And you just walked kind of right into that area.
Yeah. That's a good question. Probably my sense of taste. I like food too much.
Yeah.
It's just bottom line.
Yeah. You can you can make people see stuff that
Absolutely.
It's hard to fake taste.
Mm-hmm.
You will get to what is in there one way or the other. So I like the honesty part of that. Okay. All right. Not to hit you with all the serious ones, but let's hit you with the...
You done made me cry once, Brian.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was just trying to get you to do the radio voice.
Oh, that's all right.
You're good. No, okay, so do you believe people are generally good with a proclivity for evil, or generally evil with a proclivity for good?
I think that they are generally good with a proclivity for evil occasionally. And my caveat to that is this. And again, I am coming up on a milestone, right? Birthday-wise. And the older I get, the more I understand 2 things. Number one, we are all in an evolutionary process. We are all in flux. The person that was Tim Albright 25 years ago is not the one sitting here today. And if I'm doing it right, the one that was here a year ago isn't the same person here today, right? Through experiences, through mistakes, all over. We should be trying to continually improve ourselves. Does that mean we don't have, evil tendencies or whatever? No. I mean, we all have, a mean streak, if you will. But I think people generally are looking to better themselves and quite frankly, better those around them.
So then how does that outlook on people affect how you either move through the world or go about your work and your career?
I'm incredibly naive. Seriously. Like it's I'm not going to say it's a problem. I'm not going to say it's a problem. But I will think the best of people until I am really, really proven wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it can't happen once. It can happen a dozen times. And then I'll start considering maybe you're evil.
Yeah.
Right?
So, there are lots of trust first people out there. But
I'm one of them.
Do you then, have you coming up on a milestone, does that eventually build cynicism? Or have you been able to kind of
I hope not.
I enjoy being a trust first person.
I do.
And the downside is worth the upside.
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I say that. And my dad's in his 70s now, right? And I would couch him as the same type of person, right? Yeah. I have unfortunately watched him the last probably 5 or 6 years become a little cynical, right? And I can't tell if it's politics. I can't tell if it's what it is. I can just recognize this in somebody who I am an awful lot similar, right? Except for the fact that my father is on the other extreme of being an extrovert, and I am, oh my God. But I hope not, right? I that is one aspect of myself and my personality that I don't want to lose.
You give us all hope for it, because I'm the same way, right? I really like being that person
Absolutely.
who can start from a place of acceptance and deal with the consequences after the fact.
Deal with the consequences after the fact. And again, you know what? Prove me wrong 15 times. And
We'll
I'll
do it.
You know.
Okay.
So
I was very surprised when you showed up at the show here because I hadn't seen. Couldn't think when's the last time I had watched AV Week. I usually listen to it in the car, and the amount of hair you have was reduced by 87% from
that's
what
fair.
I was expecting.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm curious, the long hair.
Yes.
Why?
There was never one reason, right? I gave several people like one-word answers or one-reason answers just to be snarky. It started, honestly, with Ted Lasso. So there was a character on Ted Lasso called Trent Krem.
Yep.
And
wait.
Yes.
What's his? Where's he from?
Well, he was eventually taking the glasses off. He started off being from the Independent, right? But then anyhow, yes.
But that's part of it. If he introduces himself,
he
it's
takes
always
off the glasses and Trent Krem Independent.
Yeah.
And my daughter and I are watching it, and I'm like, that guy has really nice hair.
Yeah.
And he does. He has really nice hair.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can grow that. Like I'm darn near 50, but I have friends who just say that they haven't had any hair in the last 20 or 30 years, right? I'm not pointing any fingers, Ryan. But you and I both know gentlemen of a certain age, they start getting thin in the top.
Yep.
Knock on wood and think whatever stars. I am not.
Right.
And so it's a little bit of Trent Krem. It's a little bit of a flex to some buddies of mine. And then it just got a life of its own.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It was kind of became a brand almost.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You're like, do you have everyone's got the little
have him
plastic
the
version,
little,
but I assume it's got long hair.
He's got long hair. The Funko Pop of myself has long hair because when I bought it, I had long hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I'm not changing it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Like all I'm saying is for the rest of us.
Yes.
Tim, live for us.
Well, here's the thing, dude.
Please.
So here's the honest God reason why I cut it. And there is no snarkiness here. I am not going to give you 15 different answers on this one. Keeping long hair when you're on the road is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about the number of women in the industry, and yes, it's growing, and that's a wonderful thing. But you should have a little extra level of compassion for the women that are in this industry that go to trade shows and they have long hair. Because I'm here to tell you, after 2 years, it's a pain in the butt to keep up with on the road.
Yeah.
At home, you've got all your crap, you can do your thing, whatever. On the road, no.
Can't
Absolutely
be done.
no. Oh, yeah, sure, it can be done.
Right.
I just don't want to do it.
All right. Well, I never mind. I won't talk about my own sad. Whatever. I'm just saying. Enjoy your luscious.
Well, I'm enjoying the hairline, right? I've still got the
Killing
hairline.
it, man.
I just don't have it down my back.
That's what I'm. Okay.
Yeah.
Vacation.
Yeah.
If you're booking a vacation right now, where are you going? Who are you going with?
Well, my family.
Okay.
Otherwise,
not everybody answers that question that way. Like George and Rich from Pace answered it.
With each other?
Well, no, that's what it became, right? It was all with my family, and then we could come, and before you know it, both of their families were,
There were no way.
Okay.
No. Money, no object, or would you?
No, please, money, no object. Like, what would you really love to go do?
I am taking my kids and my wife, who's been with me to Paris, but that's it.
Yeah.
I'm taking my kids on a trip to Europe. When I started going to ISE, I fell in love with Europe.
Yeah.
I'm a big dumb kid from St. Louis, right? I ain't never been nowhere.
Right.
Right. And I land at Schiphol Airport, and I am enamored.
Yeah.
Right. And I fell in love with that city, like I didn't know was possible. And then Barcelona comes along, and it's a different feel. It's a different, it's a different area. I'm learning to like it.
Right.
I don't love it like I love Amsterdam.
Right.
And London is a little bit the same way for me. I've been there 2 or 3 times with our buddy Chris Netto, and fell in love with it. Right. And I would like to show my kids just the difference in the world. There's an old Mark Twain quote that I am going to get completely wrong.
Right.
Right. But basically, the greatest cure for, being a not nice person to foreigners.
Yes.
Is to travel.
Right.
And to see the rest of the world and to get outside your own bubble.
Yeah. I love it. Say, I want to share this experience with my kids because we live in a time where you can see and experience so many different things. So let's take advantage of that.
I want them to be a better person than I am.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's an aspect of raising kids where, you're trying to provide for them, this, that, and the other. And there comes a time, and I missed the line a long time, the age a long time ago when this happened, because I'm still playing catch up. There comes a change in your kids' lives where it stops being, providing for them because they have to eat and all that, to you've got to provide for this person to be a decent human being going forward, because at some point they're going to leave you.
Yeah.
And you need to do a good job by society.
Yeah.
Right? You need to do the world a favor by making sure this is a decent person.
Right. Part of my commitment to the social contract is I will put I will better humanity by literally leaving somebody better than me.
Yeah.
I love see? Who said AV podcasting can't be deep? Okay, last three questions are the same for everybody.
Okay.
First one is, what is a question that you wish somebody would ask you but nobody ever does?
That's a hard one. What do I want to be when I grow up? I don't have an answer. I just thought it was a cool question. So there's an old dear friend of mine. He was actually my brother-in-law before my sister passed. I still call him my brother-in-law. He's 5 years older than me, and he's done several things, and he's been very successful in business. He never went back and finished his degree, and he somewhat jokingly, but somewhat still seriously, will say, "I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up." Yeah. Right? I have the opposite problem. I've got a list of things that I'm trying to get to before I get out of here.
Yeah. But that list, it's got to be done.
It has to be done. At least I want. It's like one of the things I'm doing right now, and very, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm writing a book, right? That's why I don't say it, because of that reaction.
Okay.
But I'm writing a book on, how to overcome failure, right? And it's a very personal journey for me, because I've had some pretty dark times in my life, and reliving those, but also helping others, whether that is a personal failing or it's a business failing or whatever, there is light, right? There is hope, regardless of where you are in this, right? Even if you're at the bottom of the barrel or there is no barrel. Right, so this is one of those things where it is what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a writer. I want to be a speaker. And people will look at me sideways. Well, you speak every Friday. Well, yes, but that's different, right? Yeah. So those are kind of the two things I want to be when I grow up.
That's a great answer.
Huh.
I love it. And you're right. I will take back my. But that's very exciting news. That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, second to last question. If people wanted to get connected with you or find out, do not follow you on the socials. You'll probably just be talking about the Bears.
I will be, especially the next month and a half.
Yeah.
Good God.
But if they wanted to see your work.
So here's what I'll say is this, and just like the start of AV Week, this is AV Week, me saying don't follow me is a little bit of my Midwesterner.
Yeah.
Right? Midwesterners are self-deprecating and whatever. And eventually it became part of the brand.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because, again, I'd rather you not follow me. But LinkedIn, right? It's Tim Albright. I know that there are others of us out there because I'm connected with a couple of them just to be, snarky.
Yeah.
But, avnation.tv is where you can find all my rantings and my writings.
Everybody tune in, avnation.tv. Yeah. You'll learn something there.
Not from me, but yes, from other people.
True. I love the lady announcer from the ceiling
She's
has
fantastic.
Been talking. Yeah, I can't understand a word. Never mind. Okay, final question, and this is an interesting one for somebody who has a show.
Okay.
Because the question is, old style newscasters, many of them had a sign-off phrase like "good night" and "good luck," or weekend update anchors, right, have their thing they say to close out their segments.
Yeah.
So what is Tim Albright's drop the mic sign-off phrase?
Do you not know this?
Well, I'm giving... That is the question.
That's the question. Got it. Sorry.
Same last three questions for everybody. So like I'm saying, it's a little weird for somebody who actually...
So avnation.tv, that's avnation.tv. That's it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
avnation.tv.
That's avnation.tv.
With Tim Albright.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by HigherEdAV.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.